everyone. In this video, we are going to take a look at upper body strength. The Foamies. They are a grip tape replacement for the Onewheel GT and I believe other models as well. And there are a couple particular advantages to them that I personally very much appreciate. And let's take a look. So what even are Foamies? Well, the stock Onewheel GT footpads come with a coarse grip tape. This is generally grippier and in many cases better than the stock grip tape that came on the Onewheel XR and still very much the Onewheel Pint. However, one of the main complaints that I have heard and that I myself also have is the presence of quite sharp edges around the footpads. And when you have a footpad that is made out of this type of hard injection molded plastic, coupled with a more pronounced concave, the edges can get unnecessarily harsh. Now, for almost as long as I've had the Onewheel XR, I have had Float Life grip tape on it. It's very grippy, I love it very, very much, and I essentially just keep it on my XR and will likely very much continue to do so. However, the GT grip tape, which may or may not have been just an entire facsimile of the Float Life grip tape, something about this just doesn't appeal to me. And it's likely the combination of not just the grip tape itself, but the shape and the material of the footpads. And what the Foamies aim to do is to alleviate some of the comfort issues related to the GT footpads, namely the sharp corners, the lack of warm softening properties that you used to get with the Onewheel XR footpads, and they seem to do so with a minimal impact to the actual grip. Now, of course, they are not as grippy as standard grip tape because obviously it is a ribbed textured foam surface versus actual grit, and so the grip between the two, it's never going to be equal. And once you really internalize that, the benefits of the Foamies become more apparent and much more appreciated. It's important to qualify the kind of riding that I do. It's pretty much just pavement. I only really ride on the streets. I'm not a trail rider. It's not my thing. And I realize that trail riding is a very prominent part of many people's riding experiences. It just happens to not be mine. And so my lens of reviewing these and pretty much any product is specifically through that of pavement riding in the streets. It is because of that style of riding that I prefer that the loss of extra grip going to a textured foam from a grit is not something that I really missed all that much because the grip of the Foamies is actually surprisingly good. Combined with the softness of the foam that does contour a bit to the outside of your shoe's sole, you do have your weight and the texture of the foam creating a decent enough grip to maintain control even on bumpy pavement. At no point during my riding on Foamies on the GT did I feel like I was going to lose control. Did I ever feel that I wasn't in my full total regular control when riding? And so when it comes to the confidence I have in these pads keeping me on the board, I have confidence in them keeping me on the board. And the main thing that I want to highlight in this video is that I don't actually like the Onewheel GT's footpads. I don't like that they went to an injection molded plastic as opposed to the wood. I feel like they lost a lot of warmth in the ride feel, going from Canadian maple plywood to an injection molded hard plastic. There's extra resonance in it, and that, along with many other things, leads to a very harsh ride feel that I just don't actually like. In addition to that, I'm also not the biggest fan of concave on Onewheel footpads. I realize that there is a very fervent love of concave and extra concave and extreme concave. I'm not one of those folks, and I'm sorry if that disappoints you in any way. I don't love a lot of concave, especially not on a Onewheel. To illustrate that point further, hold on. This is my e-skate. It is a Lacroix Prototipo, and many people actually say that the concave on this is not enough. And it is very, very mild. It is very, very wide concave, closer to that of a surfboard than anything else, and I adore it. Now bringing it back to the GT foot pads, you have the concave shape placed into a relatively, at least relative to that E-skate, relatively narrow field, and so the concave, including the edges, is a bit more extreme as far as I'm concerned. And the Foamies actually address that concavity in a very smart way. There are a couple things going on with the Foamies. Obviously, the foam contours to the shape of the foot pad, but the edges are chamfered and meet the sharper edges of the plastic foot pad. What that ends up doing, since there's slightly less material at the chamfer, naturally, is when you put your weight on it, this corner of the Foamy sinks down a little bit and flattens the edge as your foot comes to meet the plastic. What I found happens is that, in effect, you have a slight reduction in the concavity of the foot pads, and that trues up the sole of your foot so that instead of a concave that is stretching your toes and heel, I am relatively flat-footed, fine. So instead of having that kind of action, it sort of settles back down and you have a mild concave that, as far as I'm concerned, is a bit more welcoming, a bit more comfortable in the ride. Now, since it is foam, it does further improve the ride comfort, which, in my opinion, the Onewheel GT very much lacks through a combination of the increased plastic parts and a very, very bad tire. The ride feel of the Onewheel GT is very much harsher than it is on the Onewheel XR. Now, the Foamies aren't perfect. Nothing is perfect, and there is something that you should be aware of when and or if you decide to shift away from the stock grip tape to something like the Foamies. And this is really the case with any modification you make to a Onewheel. Anything straying from the bone stock design carries with it risks, especially in this case when you are installing something on the sensor pad. Now, of course, my Foamies are fine, and my GT, within reason, more or less works fine. But the GT foot pads themselves are a bit of a complicated ecosystem. Some are very, very sensitive, some less so. Despite the firmware updates and a new one that I actually just noticed in the app today, despite all that, ghosting is still very much a concern for the Onewheel GT. If yours doesn't, wonderful, good. However, it is still something to be cognizant of, and if you are going to modify anything on a Onewheel GT, always keep that in the forefront of your mind, because that is unfortunately the reality that a Onewheel GT buyer/owner is presented with. And therefore, installing Foamies is itself somewhat of a risk. Do I believe the risk is worth it? Yes, because the ride quality of the GT, in my opinion, is such that this makes riding the GT, especially for longer amounts of time, bearable. That being said, we are going to go on to an unscripted segment wherein Dave from OneTrickWheel, the gentleman who actually makes the Foamies, installs it on my GT foot pads, and he does a much better job than I do. And so we are going to cut to that. That way, in the event that someone needs more visual reference material for installing Foamies on their Onewheel, that will be there for you. All right, so we're going to install the Foamies onto the foot pads, and we are here with Dave to make sure that I don't screw this up, which is entirely likely. And you recommend folks to start with the rear foot pad. Why is that?
It's just a good practice run. The grip tape that comes with the GT foot pad is not as sticky as the ones that come on the XR. Oh. So it's a good practice run just for this
oh my
grip
God,
tape.
you're right.
Yeah, it comes off fairly easily.
Okay.
I mean, have you been working out?
No. Yes, I've been doing finger push-ups. But no, you're right. This is noticeably less. Yeah, on the... You know, on the XR, the grip tape is less fragmenty and way more stretchy. So it kind of has less give. More difficult than what I just did.
A little bit of finesse, and you want to get it right the first time. So the Foamies are made so they fit very, very close to the edge. So you want to kind of dry fit this first, check it out, make sure it's not sticking over the edge. You don't want to catch anything. And then when I put them on, this is the part that I recommend, is that you peel up the back side of the Foamy and then you kind of just fold the backing onto itself.
Got it. Peel it up, fold it back.
Yep.
And so as you align the rear.
You're aligning with your, your fingers along the side to make sure that it's there correctly. And as soon as you feel it just right around the back side and it's good there, then you'll press down, and you can feel like that it's not sticking over the edge.
Okay.
Check that out.
Yeah, so that makes sense, because
passing over, because you don't want to catch your foot on the way up.
I assume part of the whole thing here is to be able to soften that hard edge of the foot pad.
Yeah, so you're getting as close as possible without going over.
Okay.
I mean, you do it this way, it typically is the best way to do it. So then you just pull up and start pulling out the backing, and then I start from the middle of the pad and kind of work my way out, because in the front you don't want any air pockets, and pop it all the way out, run down the middle, and work your way out to the sides. And that, my friend, is the installation of the rear.
Sweet.
Cool.
All right, let's do the next one.
All right, so this one is a lot
more complicated.
You need more finesse.
Okay, well, so then let me finesse this. And so
now,
what? I got it. I am a resident expert.
But here's the thing that I want to explain, and this is why I brought the previous version. There is, just like on the XR, there's 2 layers of plastic. So you want to, with your fingernail, just catch the grip tape only.
Okay, stay right there. Keep talking. I'm gonna get some back.
So you basically come in, barely pick up the corner. And I don't know, he did that one, so I'm gonna work on this corner.
You're like super close.
And since I cut my nails this morning,
I don't know if the camera can focus that close, but I guess we'll find out.
So you're peeling with one hand and holding down the sensor with the other.
Excellent.
And trying to apply even amount of pressure along the grip tape so it doesn't shard into the 85 pieces that you did with the rear foot pad.
Okay, see, lessons were learned, mistakes were made, and then we improve.
Exactly.
Right.
And what we found is that we actually don't need to use any heat.
Okay.
And we just take our time, get the grip tape off like you're doing.
And just let it take as long as it's going to take?
Yeah.
No rush?
And start from this side and work your way away from the where the tire would be.
Okay, so start here, work our way
because what you'll realize is after you pull this off, this almost butterflies out, so there is a separation here and here on the sensor. So if you're pulling in this direction and you happen to catch plastic on one side, there'll be a point where you'll realize it on this side, because it will basically be like a butterfly wing. You'll get one part of the wing and then you'll be like, what is that, which has happened to us before.
Got it. This is going to take a while, so we're going to go ahead and do this.
Fast
and we're going to fast forward.
Just to make sure that the sensor is held down.
Dave is continuing to work on the grip tape removal, and it does take a while. And you want to be very careful, because if you damage the front sensor and it doesn't work properly, aside from the risks of ghosting and activating, or it's simply just not activating at all anymore, you have the financial risk of then just needing to purchase another foot pad. Right, Dave?
Correct.
Because if you damage it installing anything, then that's on you.
Now that we've tested the front sensor, we're gonna do the same setup and method that we used in the rear for practice. Make sure it's aligned pretty good. Peel back the first inch or so of the backing. Repeat the process. Make sure it's aligned along the side, to the front, the corners, the whole 9 yards. When you feel happy with it, when you feel happy, you you press it down.
Good times.
All right. Get it very close to the edge. That, and then pull up. Start peeling the backing a little bit further. Again, start from the center and work your way out. Still aligned. If you lined up the front, the rest falls in place. And then we'll do another final test of if the sensor continues to work with the foam installed. Seems to work for me. That's how much I tested. I don't know about Mario. Mario's got the whole 18-point test.
Make sure it won't attempt to kill me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching. I very much appreciate your viewership. If you are interested in trying the Foamies out, link as always is in the description below. Enter in that promo code if you so choose to purchase them for a small discount and to help support the channel. Thank you for that in advance if you so choose to go that route. Next up is the long overdue review of the Onewheel GT. And after that, a review of something that's not a Onewheel, that thing right there. Because that thing is really special. Way more special than the GT. Kidding, sort of, no, but not really. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please take care of yourselves and don't fall.